Hey guys, welcome to My Sew Bliss. Today I'm really excited to be partnering with Baby Lock Sewing Machines and showing you how to take a shirt in. I know I personally have to alter my clothes all the time between lengthening my pants, shortening my pants, taking a shirt in, or adding something into the shirt to either make it fit better or just look better. So I'm hoping to bring you a few tutorials on how to do all these different types of things. So today I'm excited to share with you how to take a shirt in. I always love those boxy, overflowy shirts that just look really flowy on you, but sometimes it's a little too much. So today I'm going to show you how to take that shirt in so that you can rock it and feel comfortable in your clothes. So the supplies that you're going to need are first a shirt that doesn't fit very well. I'm going to be using this blue top. Like I said before, it's just a boxy shirt. I love it. It's super comfy, but it just kind of is really big on me and makes me more or less look like a tent. Or like I'm wearing a tent. So I'm going to show you how to take it in. It does have a little bit of gathering around it, not a ton, but that's okay. I'm going to show you how to work with that and figure it out with your shirt. And then another thing that you're going to need is some safety pins. I like using safety pins instead of my straight pins or my needles because then I don't get pricked when I'm trying it on and fitting it to myself, and then I try and take it off. I'll show you that stuff in a second, so don't worry. But these are super handy to have, so I just have my little jar of them right here. And then I'm also going to be using my Baby Lock Zest. This little sewing machine is the perfect beginner sewing machine. It's so sturdy and durable and will last such a long time. I love it for beginners. I also love it for traveling, and it's just super lightweight. I've been going up and down in my house. My sewing studio is downstairs, and I took this one upstairs so that when my kids are upstairs, I can still sew and have my own space to myself. So that's been really nice. I love that it's so portable and easy to take around, and it's going to be the perfect sewing machine for this project. So let's get started. So the first thing that we need to do is try on our shirt, and we're just not going to try it on regularly. We're actually going to turn it wrong sides out and try it on that way. So let me do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so here I have my shirt on, wrong sides out. You can see it's just a little boxy and it's not bad. I really like how it's flowy and the fabric is super soft, so I don't want to get rid of it. I'm just going to take it in a little bit. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'm going to be doing it by myself. Obviously, if you have someone to help you with this, it's going to be 10 times easier, but I don't always have someone with me. Usually I'm working when my husband is working, or I am an AKA working meaning sewing, or I'm doing it when he's out doing other projects. So I'm usually by myself when I'm sewing, and I feel like most people are. So I'm going to show you how to do it by yourself. Might be a little awkward and weird at times, but we're going to do this together. So the first thing that we're going to do is take our safety pin and open it up. And then I like to start on one side, and especially under the arm. You don't want to make it too tight that you can't get it off, first of all. And you don't want to make it too tight that your armpit gets irritated. I hate when shirts are rubbing too much under there. So definitely don't do it too tight. The looser at first is going to be better because you can always go in and re-sew it. I mean, you can always take the stitches out, but depending on the fabric, it will show the stitching. So just be really cautious about that when you do start. So I'd say do it a little bit, and then if you need to, you can go back in and do it some more. So like I said, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to pinch a little bit to where I want it. So I'm just going to kind of hold it for a minute and feel it out. It's good to stand in front of a mirror to really see how it looks on you and see what you like. So I'm just going to pin that right where I want it. And you can go into your arm seam if you need to a little bit, like coming in, taking this out as well up here. I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm going to leave it and just come in from the arm seam a little bit. And I'll show you how to do that. Don't worry. This is going to be very easy once you get it figured out. So once I have that pinned, I'm then going to take my seam gauge. And the seam gauge is just this little ruler, super handy to have when you're sewing. good for measuring all the little things. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to measure how far in I put my safety pin. So I'm going to take it right up to the edge of the safety pin and right up to the edge, whoop, got stuck, right up to the edge of my shirt. And I did it about 2 inches. So that's perfect. That's awesome that it's right on there. I didn't even like try to do that. So it's also good when you have the safety pin to kind of move around in it and see how you feel. So now I can take it, and if you want to do a straight seam all the way down, you can then measure in the rest of the way, either on your body to see how it fits or off of your body. I would suggest doing it on your body, so that way at the bottom, you know if it still fits okay down here, because obviously you're typically going to get wider at your hips, and you don't want it so tight that then you're ruining the shirt and you can't even wear it. So if you gradually need to, you can do that as well. But it's handy to use that, and then you can come down a little bit farther, or you can just take more safety pins. This is a really quick way to do it. Take some safety pins, and I'm pinning through both layers of the shirt, so the front and the back layer, and I'll go a few inches down and pin where I want it. Ooh, and close the safety pin. And then I'll just continue that all the way down the side of the shirt. And like I said earlier, this shirt has a little bit of gathering. Right here is where it starts, so you can see like all the way around it's gathered. So I'm gonna actually pull this out so that I am just getting this layer of fabric and the back layer of fabric, so the front layer and the back layer. I'm just getting those 2 pieces, and I'm not getting extra fabric. So I don't want to squeeze all this together and pin that. That would not be helpful. It'd be way more confusing. This way, I just hold on to that side seam and either measure it or just eyeball it and pin where you want, all the way down to the bottom. So, and then I'm going to go over to the other side. And one nice thing that I suggest doing, and obviously every body is going to be different. If you want it tighter or looser on one side, I guess you could do that. But I mean, obviously this has a center seam, so I want it to be equal on both sides. So for me, I'm going to measure the same as I did on this side, the same as on this side. I'm going to measure in 2 inches, and I did it just below that arm seam. So I'll measure in 2 inches, hold that in place. I'm going to try and get a bigger safety pin for this, and then pin that. And this is a good point to see how it's fitting, because this, let me make sure. Yep, I got through all layers. Okay, so this is also going to be, you don't want it too tight across your front or in your armpits on either side. So this is a good place to stop and check that, see how you like the movement, how you can move in it. It's a good idea to do that right now. So then I'll just do the exact same thing. And you can keep measuring down and do the same thing on this side, or you can just eyeball it. Really, because it's fitting your body, I think it's okay just to eyeball it and see what you like, because you want it to custom fit you, not just go by measurements. Whoops, throwing safety pins. Okay. And I don't want it to be too drastically different on either side. So if you feel like you are getting like super asymmetrical and lopsided on one side, go back and measure and see how it's looking. But I'm really liking this. So I'm going to pin both sides, and then I'll show you how we're going to sew that. Once you have both of your sides pinned, I'm going to go ahead and take the shirt off and get ready to sew. One thing that's really helpful before you go over to the sewing machine is actually taking a marking tool, or if you don't have a good marking tool or one that shows up really well, because this doesn't really show up too great, is taking your pins and actually marking where you're going to be stitching. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Like I said earlier, I'm just gonna come out from the arm seam. This is my arm seam right here, and then it goes down to the side seams. So I'm gonna take this, and yeah, so this isn't really showing up at all. So I'll just take my pins and come out from that arm seam and come to my safety pin. And then I'm going to make sure, especially with the gathers, I don't want to get fabric that I don't want to cut out. So I'm going to make sure it's laying pretty flat, and I'm going to kind of push the gathers out and then pin it in place. And then keep going down and following where my safety pins are that I marked. And once I have that marked, I can actually go ahead and take out the safety pins, because these straight pins are going to be a lot easier to take out while we're sewing than if we just left the safety pins in. That would kind of be tricky to take out while we're at our sewing machine, because now I have marked exactly where I want to sew. I can take these out. So now that I'm at the sewing machine, I'm actually going to get the sewing machine ready to sew. And for this one, I like using a zigzag stitch. That's just going to be a really tighter stitch, and especially if you don't have a serger, it's going to be a lot better for your fabric to help with fraying. You can also do a straight stitch and then a zigzag stitch. So first I will do the straight stitch just to make sure everything looks good and it comes out right. And then I'll go back and do the zigzag stitch right next to it. So let me show you. I'm going to start up at my arm seam, and right where I had that pin, get that fabric out, there we go. Okay, so right where I had the pin, and I'm just starting in the seam so that we have no puckers or anything weird happening. And I can take that one out, and I'm going to hold my threads. Make sure you always do that before you start sewing. And stitch a couple times, and then I'm going to go and back stitch and then start going again. And now I'm just going to follow my pins around. Oh, that one kind of slid out. So let's redo that. Okay, so there we go. And I'm just going to kind of pivot as I sew. If you need to, you can put your presser foot up and turn the fabric to kind of angle it better. And I'm going to pull those gathers apart again, just making sure I don't get any unnecessary fabric. And for this one, I'm going to stitch right down to that needle. There we go. I don't want to break my sewing machine needle, so make sure you stop and take those out. And again, I'm going to hold both sides and kind of stretch it just tiny so that I don't get those extra gathers. And right now I'm going right next to the needle. So I'll take that out and then just go all the way down, doing the same thing, making sure no extra fabric is getting caught in there. And I'll just sew all the way down to the bottom of the shirt. And then once I get to that bottom, I need to remember to back stitch, hold our stitch in place, and then I can cut my threads. So here's my seam. You can't really see it in this fabric, but once I open the shirt up, you can kind of see I took out about 2 inches, and it looks pretty good. It lined up pretty well. I don't have any puckers or gathering that shouldn't be there. Make sure that sleeve smoothly curved out, which it looks really good. So now I'm going to do, before I do a zigzag stitch to finish that off, I'm going to do the other side with the straight stitch as well. I'm going to go pin it first and then stitch it. Now, before I do the zigzag stitch or cut out any fabric, I like to try it on and see how I like the fit. Make sure you like how the underarm is fitting, and especially through the sides and the hips, all those areas that can be too tight. Make sure you like how it fits. And I did this right sides out. It is gonna have a little bit of bulk under there because we haven't cut out the fabric yet, the extra fabric, I mean. So just remember that when you are trying it on. But I really like how it's fitting. It's a little tighter to the body up here, and I feel like it kind of gives a little more shape than a tent. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm gonna go back over to my sewing machine and I'll show you how we're gonna do the zigzag stitch. So now that I know I like the seam, I like where the straight stitch is, I'm going to be putting in that zigzag stitch because I am gonna cut off this extra fabric, and we don't want this fabric to fray and then get all messy and kind of unravel in the washing machine. That would be really awful. So I'm gonna do my zigzag stitch. So on this Baby Lock Zest, we're gonna turn the dial to C, and then the length, I like to do it about 2.5, 3. I'll do it up to a 3 for this one, because over here it kind of shows you how to do all those different stitches. So I'm lining it up, my straight stitches right here, and I'm just going a little bit on the inside of it. I'm not going on the straight stitch, but I'm just gonna go right next to it. That way we're not taking any more fabric out, but we're just finishing it off really nicely. So I'll just start stitching, and again, you can back stitch and just create that good finish. And then I'll just go all the way down. And again, when you come to the sides, oh, I caught that little thread right there. Let's cut that off. So when I come down and curve and do the sides, I do want to make sure to pull that fabric out. So that way I'm not getting any unnecessary fabric in my stitching. Oops, there we go. And we'll just do a back stitch at the end and cut those threads. So now that I've done the other side, I'm going to do the same exact thing to this side with the zigzag stitch. Now, one thing, if you do have a serger, you can definitely do a serger stitch along your straight stitch instead of that zigzag stitch. This zigzag stitch is just if you don't have a serger. It's going to finish off that edge a lot nicer. So for our final step, and this is if you don't have a serger again, you're going to take, I just like to start at this end right here, and I'm going to go, here's my seam, here's my stitching right here, and I'm going to go right next to it. I'm not cutting my zigzag stitching that I just did, I'm just cutting right up next to it. And you want to make sure you don't cut those threads that you just stitched at all, or the whole thing will unravel. You'll have to stitch it again. But I'm just cutting out this extra fabric. And it's nice to kind of readjust, especially with the gathered fabric. Again, I want to make sure I don't catch any fabric that I'm not supposed to. Don't want to put a hole in the shirt. That would cause a whole nother problem for us to fix. So just trying to stay right up next to it without cutting the stitching. And curve around the edge. And then we'll just come right off the edge. So just gradually finish that off. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. And then once you are done cutting off that extra fabric on your side seams, you are all done taking in your shirt. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them down in the comments below and I will try and answer all of them. Make sure to check out Baby Lock Sewing Machines and the awesome Baby Lock Zest from the Genuine collection. Like I said earlier, I'm obsessed with this machine. It's the perfect little traveling companion and a great sewing machine for beginners. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification button so that you'll be notified when I upload my next tutorials and videos. If you want to see more tips and tricks in my everyday sewing life, you can check me out on Instagram at MySewBliss, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!